Whoa, finally got it. What is this, you might ask? Well, it is a longboard from Retrospect, and I have been waiting for this thing for 2 weeks. Ooh, that only took forever. Dude, this is, it's awesome. It's time to take it for a spin. Honestly, it's been so long since I've taken a ride on a skateboard or a longboard. So, what are we talking about today? Exposure. How do you get good exposure in your videos? Well, there's a couple things you can do. And there's a couple things that you're gonna need to know. Why don't we find a place to sit and chat, shall we? I don't know where to go. You can't get here on a longboard. It's all grass. So, yeah. All right, exposure. How are you gonna get the perfect exposure for your videos every single time? Well, to do that, you gotta start by knowing 3 things. Aperture, what does that mean? So aperture, or f-stop, is how wide open or closed off your lens is. So a lower f-stop means a wider aperture, which means more light. And a higher f-stop means a smaller aperture and less light. The second one is shutter speed, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's the speed of the shutter, how fast it's going when you're taking a video. And the last thing is the ISO. And the ISO is how sensitive the sensor is to the light that's coming into the camera. The first thing you need to do is set your camera in manual. You don't want shutter priority or aperture priority. You want it in full manual, which means you control all the settings. The second thing you need to know is that you need to keep your shutter speed 1 over double your frame rate. So if you're shooting at 24 frames per second, that should be 1 over 50. Or if you're shooting 120 frames per second, then your shutter speed needs to be 1 over 250. So why does that matter? Well, if your shutter speed is too low, then you're gonna get way too much motion blur. And if your shutter speed is too high, then you're gonna get this weird, jittery, janky kind of movement. So now that you know what those 3 things mean, you can figure out how to set up your camera. You know, I feel like I always seem to shoot when it's windy, and then now like the wind is pushing the water and underneath me, and it's kind of loud. So getting your exposure right is gonna be a combination of those 3 things. So now we have our shutter speed set at 1 over 24, or for slow-mo at 1 over 250. And we have our ISO somewhere between 1 and 400, depending on how bright it is outside. Sometimes that's still too bright. Now for me, I like to always shoot wide open. I like to have that nice blurry background. Depending on what you're gonna do, those settings will change a little bit. But if I'm shooting like a landscape or like architectural or something, typically I'll be between like 7.1 to 8, but if I do that, I'm gonna get less light in. So a lot of the time when I'm shooting wide open, it's still really, really bright. That leaves me with a couple of options. Option A, I crank up the shutter speed. Option B, I close down the aperture. Or option C, I use an ND filter. So let's go through these. Cranking the shutter speed will give you like weird, jittery kind of motion. Right now, we're at 1 over 50. And right now, we're at 1 over 4,000. So you can see the difference. The next option is we can do something like this, where we have the aperture at f over 11. And you can see it's not really blurry behind me, but the exposure is about the same. Now, your last option is probably the best, and it's what I would go for. And it is using an ND filter. What's an ND filter? It's basically like sunglasses for your camera. And I have one on right now, so I'm gonna show you what happens when I take it off. It's extremely blown out. I like variable undies, especially when you're doing like run and gun shooting. It's nice to be able to just throw something on and kind of adjust it the way that you need. This one, for example, gets darker and lighter. Now, personally, I use the Polar Pro ND filters, but you can find cheaper ones anywhere on Amazon or eBay or anything like that. I think I need to go back home, get some food, and get back to work because I am technically still working, even though I'm making this video. So, yes. If you guys have made it all the way till now, kudos, like that's awesome. If you feel like this video has brought some kind of value to you, then please do me a favor, hit the like button. It makes a huge difference, especially in the algorithms of YouTube. And consider subscribing because I'm gonna have a lot more of this stuff coming out. I appreciate you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later. You know, I don't know what it is about geese. Those things are mean, man. And they're fearless. I don't know why they call them Canada geese. They're so mean. And they poop everywhere. So what did you guys think? First like tutorial thing, vlog, you know? You know, if you're still here, then like, that's freaking awesome. Seriously, subscribe. It's like right here, and like is somewhere around here. And if you didn't like this video, feel free to hit the dislike button twice. All right, I'm actually gonna go now. All right.